Try to relax your mind. In the sense, when I say relax the mind, what I mean is let go of the discursive thoughts and the continuity of grasping, the various kinds of worries that we have or fantasies that we have. Let them go for a period of time, recalling, if you can, everything that we perceive is empty of this sense of reality that we attribute to it. The Buddhas did not perceive any kind of conventional phenomena on the dependent arising that appears to us in various ways. Absolutely nothing exists inherently. Begin by taking your breathing as a focal object of mindfulness. Try to notice with your vigilance or alertness whether your mind is engaging in other trains of thought, if you've lost the breathing completely for some period of time, or if there's subtle excitement and that your mind is trying to do two things at once. Just focus on one object at a time. Then withdraw your attention further inward to your subtle mind, the abode of your subtle mind, your heart chakra, away from the cerebral area. Just watch your mental consciousness. Try to perceive the underlying clear light nature. Focus on that as an object of calm abiding. And within that clear space of your mind, within this controlled environment of meditation, try to observe the I, the sense of I, the subtlemost manifestation of that. You may want to instigate it somewhat by recalling some humiliating or adverse situation where your ego was very prominent. fearful situation. Try to recognize the object of negation here as a sense of identity that is not merely imputed by the mind, not merely a concept or name, but something that seems to have an inherent existence, as though it were to be findable. Another way of looking at it, existing somehow from its own side, independent of causes and conditions. It's actually appearing to you right now, but perhaps you're oblivious of it if you're not focusing correctly. First, recognize this mode of existence as something which seems to be true, appears to be inherently existing from its own side. And then review the second essential point. If such a entity existed, comparing it with the collection of the five aggregates, the I would either have to be inherently one with the aggregates or inherently other, that is to say, different than the aggregates. There's no third possibility. Two things that exist, if they both exist, they have to either be the same or different. If the I were identical to the aggregates, which are well understood to be related to the I, if they were identical to the aggregates, inherently one with them, there could be no difference at all. There would have to be five I's as there are five aggregates. There would have to be a body I, a feeling I, so forth. Or, because the self seems to be one to our mind, a unity, there would have to be just one aggregate. Perhaps the origin of some of the tenets thinking that the actual self-illustration of the self is just the consciousness aggregate, for instance. But even a consciousness aggregate has parts. So there would have to be various eyes of the various moments if it were inherently one with the consciousness. On the other hand, if it were inherently different than the consciousness, inherently different than the aggregates, it could have nothing to do with them whatsoever. It would be totally independent, truly, inherently other than the aggregates. In which case, if you were to cut your finger, you wouldn't say, "Oh, I've hurt myself." Or if your mind felt affection for someone, you wouldn't say, I love you. There are many other absurd consequences if the I were to be inherently one with the aggregates or inherently different than the aggregates that you can research as you read. But on the basis of what we've just investigated now, having recognized the object of negation, brought about some certainty of the pervasion that the I would have to be one or other than the aggregates, if it existed, and then seeing that it is neither inherently one nor inherently different than the aggregates, see if you can develop some glimmer of certainty, wisdom growing, that this object, which is the conceived object of our ignorance, the sense of I existing from its own side, it is utterly non-existent. The object that we've grasped to, that's caused all of our sorrow, our anger, our depression, our attachment, our unfulfilled wishes and sorrow and uncomfortable feelings, this does not exist at all. Just an utter vacuity appears to such a consciousness. But having been induced by this logic, it is actually ascertaining something. It is actually understanding that lack. It's not thinking at this point, there is no I, or this is emptiness. As Rinpoche said yesterday, this is a consciousness which is perceiving a non-affirming negation. Nothing is affirmed in the place of what is being negated. If the clarity or certainty of this begins to fade, in order to develop a union of tranquil abiding and penetrative insight, shamatha vipassana, centered on emptiness, we again, within that quiet state of mind, engage in analysis, 4-point analysis in this case. Or if you're already familiar with the king of reasonings, Rinpoche alluded to yesterday, you can use that reasoning instead of the 4-point analysis. The self that seems to be truly existent is the self, actually, which is merely imputed to the I, the self that does exist, is empty of true existence. It's non-inherently existent because it's a dependent arising. Its origin or arisal depends upon 3 things. A basis of designation, the 5 aggregates, which are not they themselves are not the self, but a necessary condition. A consciousness observing the basis of designation. And the thought process that gives a name or concept to them. I is merely a name, in other words. So on the basis of this reasoning, also you can analyze, let go of the sense of I, and try to generate the wisdom consciousness penetrative insight. That realizes the self is not truly existent. Whenever the clarity or certainty begins to diminish, again one engages in subtle analysis to revive that. This is how one brings about a union of tranquil abiding and penetrative insight. So then bring your attention back to the present. Yesterday, there was one point that our excellent... Oh, a little accident there.
You okay? No, I'm okay.
Drawer with all, all the water offerings. Okay, it's very auspicious. I remember once when we were receiving an initiation and some of the offerings spilled over me, and my teacher, Geshe Jumpa Gyatso, said, "Oh, it's very auspicious that the deity is granting blessings, sort of like initiation." So maybe Mark, it's Mark, right? Maybe Mark just received initiation from the medicine Buddhas. All his illnesses will be gone now. So yesterday, our very excellent translator had some question about these 3 points about the basis of designation. Do you remember what that is? You know what the meaning, the term basis of designation is? Do you know, Dorji?
That would be the valid base upon which to label something?
Yeah. So for instance, in the case of the person, Jason Greenberg, Dorje, Marigpa, whatever, it would be the 5 aggregates. And so the question, so actually there's 3 things we have to sort of differentiate between when we talk about a person. There's the basis of designation, the 5 aggregates. There is the conventionally existent person, which is legitimately, correctly imputed upon that. And then there's the appearance of a truly existent person. As soon as we impute upon the basis of designation, there are other bases of designation too, like the configuration of these flowers. The various parts are the basis upon which I designate the name flower. That's the second thing. So the basis of designation, the name or concept that I designate, which is different, conventionally different than the basis of designation. The name, the concept Dorje, is different than the basis of designation conventionally. Remember yesterday there was a little bit of discussion about that, whether the basis of designation was the conventional person or not. It's different, conventionally different. But as soon as we designate the person, a third thing appears, the appearance of a truly existent person, appearing from the location of the basis of designation. So 3 things. So we've already investigated a little bit about the conventionally existent person. We've understood the Buddha's insight, or we've been told of it, even if we haven't realized it ourselves or understood well, that the person is merely imputed. That's the only kind of person that does exist, and that the appearance of a truly existent person is an illusion. There is nothing that actually corresponds to that. There is the appearance of a person that seems to be findable, to our mind. It seems as though there is really a person out there, or in terms of our own mind. Once we say I, we have that concept upon the body and mind, the combination of body and mind, which is a short way of saying the 5 aggregates, right? Because the body is one and the mind constitutes the other 4 aggregates. As soon as we say that, there is a sense, because of habituation over numberless lifetimes, of I existing from its own side, not merely imputed. And the two, the appearance of the conventionally existent I and a truly existent I, I'm not sure which one should be the truly existent I. Anyway, one of them does exist and has an appearance. The other one has an appearance but doesn't have anything corresponding to it. Those two are mixed inseparably. They can't be separated for our ordinary mind. Okay. So we still have that third element, the basis of designation, and there are these 3 criteria for designating the existence of a phenomena. If you happen to like to go into more detail, you can check this book, Realizing Emptiness, by very excellent, one of my dear spiritual friends, Genlam Rinpoche, who just recently passed away. I think, in Bhutan. And Genlam I met in Dharamsala. He had a little, before he moved off to Bhutan. He was a great meditator. He wasn't a geshe. He used to tell me stories about how he felt. A lot of his mind training had to do with overcoming his own indignation when he wasn't invited to various teachings that High Lamas gave because he wasn't a geshe. He was only a meditator off in the mountains. And this was very, very interesting for me, and very, very humble, very wise person who spent many years meditating. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama actually suggested that he come to America and teach about tranquil abiding, because he had some actual realization of calm abiding and perhaps insight into emptiness. So he taught, I think, was it in Seattle a couple of years ago? Gave a retreat several years ago. And Alan Wallace, who was then a monk, Jampa Kelsang, was the translator for him. Now, this is one section that he was talking about emptiness. So in this book, on page 88, if you happen to have it, Realizing Emptiness, in Snowline, there are the 3 criterion for designating the existence of phenomena. So I'll read you what these are, just to make it a little more clear what Rinpoche was talking about yesterday. I'll read you just this, we don't have enough time, I'll read very quickly the introductory paragraph. Now we can ask a further question. If something is conceptually designated, right, imputed by conception, is it therefore existent, or may it be non-existent? If something is conceptually designated, is it necessarily existent, or might it be non-existent? Well, you can imagine, you could designate boogeyman here. Boogeyman is non-existent here. Well, maybe you would say there's boogeyman here, but so it just designating something conceptually is not a criteria for that thing to exist. There has to be a valid basis of designation, right? It is said that a blue mountain does not exist, a blue snow mountain. Do you know what that refers to? Sometimes in the high mountains, due to the atmosphere, the reflection of the sky on the snow, a snow mountain, which is actually white, appears to be blue. I'm not sure if it's due to somehow the eyes being affected by the high altitude, less oxygen, or also a combination of the blue sky reflecting off the snow. But that's a common example. A blue snow mountain does not exist. Given that all entities are conceptually designated, what is the criterion for determining what does and does not exist? We say that a blue snow mountain, I'm adding the word snow, is conceptually designated but does not exist. What do we mean by that? Okay, here's something which is conceptually imputed by mind, but doesn't exist. Dorje, microphone, wristwatch, these are things that are conceptually designated and do exist. So what do we mean by the fact that some things do not exist? It means that a deluded person affirms its existence. And we say that a mountain is conceptually designated as designated, and that moreover, it exists by being established by conceptual designation, a mountain in general. The distinction here comes from the fact that three qualities all need to come together for something to exist by way of being conceptually designated. Because these are the three things that were being talked about yesterday. The first criterion is that the phenomenon has to be commonly accepted with respect to ordinary cognition. So this is what Rinpoche was saying. Or what is actually said, Tamelpe shepa la takpa. So I wasn't catching the word trakpa yesterday. Trakpa means renowned or commonly accepted. So true existence is something that is consensually accepted. What does that mean? By consensus. Most, if you ask something, do things truly exist? They say, yeah, sure, they really exist. My beer, my potatoes, the redskins, my husband, my wife, they do exist. My problems. True existence is something that is consensually accepted by people's ordinary cognitions, and other non-existent things are as well. The word consensual means that accepted by ordinary awareness. So here, this is the first criterion. If something is not accepted by consensus, common consciousness, then it is not a, how do we say, a basis of designation. But there are things that the first criterion is even fulfilled by things that appear to be truly existent. The second criterion is that the phenomenon must not be repudiated or harmed by conventional cognition. This was the second one. Tanyepe shepala nupa. Nupa means to be harmed, or here he says repudiated. For example, the awareness that cognizes a blue snow mountain, is undermined and harmed by the awareness that cognizes a white mountain. And that consciousness invalidates the awareness of the blue snow mountain. On the contrary, when the white snow mountain is also something that is conceptually designated, while that's true, the awareness of the white snow mountain is not invalidated or harmed by any other awareness. Since it is not undermined by any other conventional awareness, we can therefore say it exists. And the third criterion is that the phenomenon is also not repudiated by reasoning that investigates the ultimate reality. This was, I'm not sure if Rinpoche his text was exactly the same, but here it says, Dekona ni ki rikbe kyang minoba. I think Rinpoche's text said, Dondambe rikba, analysis of the ultimate. Not harmed by that. This means that the phenomena in question is not invalidated by an awareness that investigates emptiness. So, for instance, the phenomena of truly existent flowers or truly existent dorje fits the first one, that it's not invalidated by consensual awareness, consensus, common renown. But it is harmed by this third one, because in the analysis analyzing the ultimate can repudiate that truly existent person, truly existent phenomena. So I just thought I'd mention that because just as it might have been a little gap in the teaching, and you might have felt frustrated not having that clear, you can read in more detail. This is one place, I'm not sure of any others. Realizing Emptiness by Genlan Rinpa. By Genlan Rinpa. Yes.
Of designation the same as the basis of imputation?
Just another way of translating the same thing, right? You could translate the word tokpa as imputation or designation. So basis of imputation, basis of designation, right? Same.
So those three for something to be truly.
No, because there's nothing that's truly existent.
Okay, so that's right.
Ah.
Aha.
Here it says the three criteria for designating the existence of phenomena. So the way that Fabrizio was translating yesterday, he was saying the three criteria for a valid basis of imputation. So it's in relationship to that. So the basis of imputation has to not be harmed by these various kinds of analyses.
So doesn't the third one harm everything?
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Oops. No. For instance, the conventionally existent person is not harmed by ultimate analysis. Because the conventionally existent person is not conceived to be truly existent. Okay? Although it can be, I mean, let's put it this way. There is the appearance to our mind of a conventionally existent person mixed with the appearance of a truly existent person. Right? Those two, for ordinary minds, are not separable. But if we were to talk about to a bodhisattva who's realized emptiness, we can say that there is an understanding, a dawning understanding of conventional phenomena. The things around us are conventional phenomena, but we do not realize them as conventional phenomena. They are conventional. It's like, for instance, meeting some movie star and not knowing that, you've met Robert Redford, but you didn't know him as Robert Redford, or you ran across, you had tea with Richard Gere, but you didn't realize him as Richard Gere, or something like that. So we perceive conventional phenomena, but we don't realize them as conventional phenomena. The fact that they are conceptually designated. What is appearing to us, and the main thing we are grasping to, is the sense of their being truly existent. Okay, so.
Tell me what those three things were again, please. I mean, don't list the three, but tell me what their label is.
What their label is.
In other words, what were those three?
What are the
The three criteria of what?
Designating the existence of phenomena.
A conventional object. Any conventional object.
Yes.
Well,
No.
phenomena, there are two kinds of phenomena. Ultimate truths and conventional truths. So, in terms of designation, all phenomena that exist are merely designated by mind. So even ultimate truth could be said from a conventional point of view to be designated by the mind. But anyway, we're going a little bit afield. What I would I'd suggest is if you have a chance to read this section and go into a little more detail. But it has to do, for instance, there are a lot of other interesting things when you begin to investigate about emptiness. Like, for instance, does the basis of designation exist out there before you designate the phenomena? What did I say here? Someone said, yeah. What's that? So, of course, of course, it's to discover. In fact, Genlam Rinpoche mentions in this text, if I recall, I read some time ago, that the arisal of the basis of designation to your consciousness as a valid basis of designation takes place when you impute. They're dependent. It's dependent. Like when you have a tripod, I don't mean one that's welded together or tied together, but when you put three sticks together and they each support. If you take one of them away, the other two fall down. So like that phenomena, I'll get to you in a second. Like that, phenomena come into existence independent, not upon these three things, but in dependence upon, when we talk about them being dependent arisings, dependent upon a basis of designation, valid basis of designation, a consciousness which perceives that, and the imputation or concept or name that consciousness gives. Those three things are dependent upon one another. You can't have the concept without the basis of designation and without the consciousness. You can't have the consciousness that's perceiving the basis of designation without the basis of designation and the name. And even the name, the conception, depends upon the other two. So, and they all come into existence at the same time. So it's not as though the basis of designation is existing out there before you give the name. So you have to think about that a little bit. This is some subtle point. So this gentleman back, what's your name? I forgot. Ed, yeah.
Could you give an example
Mr. Ed.
of a convention that satisfies the first two conditions but does not satisfy the third?
The criterion for designating the existence of phenomena. So something which is commonly accepted with respect to ordinary cognition, such as a truly existent person. It is not harmed by conventional analysis, but it is harmed by ultimate analysis. Okay? A blue snow mountain or the horns of a rabbit may be harmed by both. It might be that some people, by consensus, maybe people say there are horns of a rabbit, but it is repudiated by conventional analysis, by conventional consciousness. Where do we say it? Conventional, just the conventional consciousness. Taniepe shepe la nova. So these are kind of fine points that Rinpoche brought up. They're not part of the great Pabonka Dorje Chang's exposition at this point, which is mainly talking about a general presentation of the four-point analysis. But Rinpoche mentions some of these things when he was talking about dependent arising yesterday, in the context of a commentary, I believe, to one of the Lanrim texts by Pabonka Rinpoche, another text where he was talking about emptiness. Someone had a... With this, I don't know.
I'm not quite sure I don't, but yes, go ahead anyway. Are you saying that in order for something to exist, there has to be a consciousness that perceives it? And if that's the case, then what about parts of the universe that we don't know anything about, and we don't know if there is any consciousness to perceive it? Does it mean that in order for a part of the universe that is beyond our comprehension to exist, that some other being has to perceive it?
It has to be, for something to exist, it has to be an object of knowledge, and everything that exists is perceived at least by the omniscient mind. So the famous story was that if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, how's it? Does it still make a sound? Or scientists would say, oh yes, the sound atoms still go. But you could ask, if no one perceives something, does it exist? Because it's not imputed. You have to look at it from different ways over some period of time. From a certain point of view, you can say everything that does exist is perceived by the omniscient mind. So there is some mind that perceives everything. Okay?
You can't prove that.
You can prove it when you ascertain, when you prove the existence of enlightenment. And that can be proved before you attain enlightenment. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to develop, a lot of people would not be able to develop bodhicitta, because in developing bodhicitta, the altruistic wish to achieve enlightenment for the welfare of others, one of the things you have to establish is that enlightenment is possible. So that has to do with realizing the clear light nature of the mind, the Buddha potential, the fact that delusions can be removed. And those are things that we may take on faith verbally now, but they are things that can be realized. And bodhisattvas do realize them, and they do achieve these states. These are things that maybe many of us are just, we just take on faith right now. So let's just end here with some questions in your mind, and so that's, and we'll have a little break before Rinpoche starts. So let's do another short meditation and dedication. Whenever we dedicate, we begin with a conventional designation, a conventional dedication, which is the aspiration that the merits that we created during this course, today, even other merits that we have not yet ripened in our continuum, We could even dedicate merits that we have not yet created, sort of planned that they, may all the merits that I ever have created, that still abide, that will be created, may they ripen in such a way that they enhance the welfare of all sentient beings, bring about the enlightenment of all sentient beings. And the Bodhisattva's special method of dedicating is to dedicate within the emptiness of the three spheres. So this requires a higher wisdom that realizes the merits themselves are not inherently existent. They're just imputationally imputed, just imputed by concept upon a collection of parts that do function. The goal dedicated to also doesn't exist inherently, the enlightenment of all sentient beings. Although when we conceive of it, it seems to be some goal that seems to be out there and inherently existent. It too, like all phenomena, are non-inherently existent, not truly existent. And the active dedication, aspiration trying to join these merits, wishing these merits ripen in that way, this act is just a name that we give to this collection of parts. It can't be findable. It's not findable anywhere, the dedication, within those parts. Just a name we designate. But still it functions. Like the self, merely designated to the collection of parts. Conventionally existent, still functions, but is not truly existent.